What happened to your school bad boy girl? Story 1, she was a bit of a goth. Smoked in front of the school, smoked pot behind the gym, graduated valedictorian, went to Stanford on a full ride scholarship. Story 2, my biggest bully in middle high school ended up going to prison. Funny thing though, my mom worked in that prison, and they got to know each other when he got out. He found me and apologized. He later got a job at a local Taco Bell, and whenever I came in, he would always add a bunch of free stuff to my order. I haven't seen him in almost 2 decades, but I know he became a dad. I actually hope he's doing well. Edit, just look him up, had 3 kids, a wife, and is a contractor now. I'm glad he turned around. Edit 2, wow. Just checked in on this a day later, and my comment blew up. Glad this made some days. Story 3, alcoholic. Missing most all his teeth, usually in between jobs in either lawn service or pest control. Has custody of his kids cause he's the good parent. She's dead. OD right out of high school. Story 4, not sure how this happened, but there were 3 bad boys on our football team, all players and all very good looking. They cussed, drank, smoked all the time, and were constantly getting laid, or at least telling everyone they were. Right around senior year college, they each went through some change and are all now born-again Christians. No partying, less cussing, and none of them talk about women in an objectifying way. It's great, but kind of unnerving in a way. Story 5, school bad boy. When there was my older brother, drug dealer, played in a metal band, general smartass, and he flunked out of college after 2 semesters and has been waiting tables since then. He turns 30 this year, and the girl he's dating now is the first one who stayed with him for more than 6 months. She's super cool, actually, but like 5 years younger than him. They have a couple dogs, smoke a lot of weed, and play a lot of D&D. Last I heard from him, he was escalating a feud with his neighbor by putting a plate and a half worth of loose cooked spaghetti in her mailbox. Story 6, shot and killed 2 fellow students behind a Publix across the road. So now he's in prison. Edit, for people wondering where, it was in Roswell, Georgia. Story 7, he got arrested for spray painting a wall, and happy ending, he went back to school and got into uni. Edit, no, the painting did not have a happy ending. His story did. Story 8, I guess I was bad boy in high school. 2 of the girls I dated called me their bad boy phase years later. I thought I was so bad too, because I didn't give about anything and broke every rule I thought was stupid. Then I got sent to a school filled with kids way worse than me. My graduating class was around 20. I think I maintained the same attitude about everything, but somehow graduated. I was considered a good kid in that school because I did half my schoolwork and I wasn't shooting up or partying every weekend. Anyway, now I'm closing in on 30. I have a good job, $65K a year, quite a bit in the city I live in, and just bought my dream car. I'm currently sitting on my couch, typing this in an awkward position because my cat decided to go to sleep right where my arm would go. Sorry if that was poorly written. I just did shots with my grandmother over Skype for her birthday. Edit, lots of questions. The car is 2019 Honda Civic Type R. I'm an operations manager at a plant. My grandma is amazing, and I have many more stories, but I fear I may have doxed myself and will be deleting my account when I get home. Thank you. Story 9, which one? 1 became a serial killer. My wife dated him before all that. 1's doing life for contract killing. 3 are dead. They were bangers too. Or in mental wards, I was a hood. Banger back in the late 80s, early 90s. Grew up in New Mexico. There were very few of us that became productive members of society. I got caught for B. Judge gave me a choice, jail or Job Corps. I took the latter, met my wife shortly after, and she taught me what it means to be a real man, father, human being. Story 10, I was the bad girl. I was very academically gifted, but had a bad home life, so I smoked cigarettes, weed, drank a fair bit of vodka. Basically did everything I could to rebel against authority. I once threw a jar of blood on the principal animal blood. Long story. Ended up getting kicked out. Spent 2 years on the streets with a bad drug habit, surviving through work. Had a massive OD, turned my life around. Worked in transport logistics. Now at 30, I'm at university, studying computer science engineering. I'll be 34 when I graduate. Story 11, a rumor went round school that he was messing around with a 13-year-old at 16. She fell pregnant. He got done for statutory rape. Her parents pressed charges, and he went to juvenile detention. He married her anyway once she was legally able to get married, although I believe they divorced shortly after, and he became a grandfather at 31, presumably because the daughter they had also fell pregnant at a really young age. Story 12, he wasn't the quintessential bad boy, but did drugs, drank, got arrested for drugs, total partier. Always nice to me, and we were friendly, but that whole scene just wasn't my thing. That was 1981, and up until 2013 wondered whatever happened to him. Found out my daughter's new boyfriend was his son. I was very relieved to find out that shortly after high school he realized he was going nowhere fast, cleaned himself up, and started successful business. Thrilled to say that my husband and I share 2 beautiful grandchildren with he and his wife, and I couldn't be more happy about it. Edit, thanks a lot to the kind Redditor that gave me my first award ever. You Steven Z too. Thanks for all the very nice replies. Story 13, I know you are not going to believe this one. The bad boy super jack dude. Dude bro, blonde blue eyes jock that got all the women. Well, he's doing gay at a professional level these days. So there's that. He's doing fine though. The bad girl that everyone was in love with, not me at the time though. She turned out to be a very sweet person with an abusive dad, and that made her be so rebellious and edgy back in high school. Well, she's my ex-wife now. So there's that. She's doing fine though. Story 14, the one that comes to mind, forced his ex at gunpoint into his car and then drove to another state. Cops eventually caught up with them, and then he shot himself in the car. I feel really bad for the girl. Story 15 is funny. In some aspect, just about every classmate of mine was a bad kid. Many went on to college or have kids, but many others have struggled. Out of 55, 12 have died. We graduated high school 6 years ago. Story 16, two bad boys, both brothers, a few years apart. The younger one started some sort of legitimate business, think Roy from The Office, and seems to be doing extremely well. The oldest is literally homeless and constantly begging for money on Facebook. It's really sad. Story 17, drugs and brain damage. In middle school, there were these twins who were both really cool. They had a band, one did drums while the other sang and played guitar, skated, occasionally got in trouble with the law, but for really small things. A few months ago, I was taking a bus when I saw them get on. They were clearly homeless, and one of them kept whining to the other that he needed his fix. He passed out, and his brother half-heartedly puked in his hand. Eventually, the bus driver saw one of them, not strip down his boxers to get some non-puke stained clothes on and told them to get off the bus. Told my folks about seeing the twins. Apparently, they've been in and out of jail for years. Other guy I did karate with in middle and high school, and was a sweet guy who had a bit of a temper and was a bit of a troublemaker. I saw him on the streets. We were both in our mid-20s, but he looked like he was pushing 40. He talked slow, one side of his face drooped, even when he smiled, and he walked with a limp. I later found out that he was an on and off heroin addict and had been in enough fights that he was permanently brain damaged. Story 18, I'm fairly certain one of the prominent and popular bad girls at my school ended up as a prostitute. A few years after graduation, she kept posting about how people should come get massages at this sketchy spa. She worked at downtown. She also kept posting about her modeling career, but all the photos were behind a pretty steep paywall, so I'm pretty sure that was... Anyway, I read in the news one day that this spa she worked at was raided by the cops, and the owner was arrested for running a prostitution ring. She suddenly stopped posting after that. Story 19, bad boy is now manning the front desk of the local dry cleaner. Bad girl got married, got divorced, and is desperately trying to get married again, but everyone is taking a bite, but nobody is buying. Story 20, my school's drug a burnout. Slain, UPS hijacking suspect, was an armed and desperate violent felon. Story 21, my school's bad boy girl never got traction, but the popular guy is now overweight and balding and recently hit on my at the gym. I was an awkward band kid and grew into a very pretty lady, you Chad, for real. His name is Chad. 2 died of opioid overdoses, and the 3rd died in a front-end collision while doing donuts in a roundabout. Story 22, apparently. Just looking at Facebook, he's now a nerdy hipster who frequently donates to various charities. In high school, he was a scene metal kid who had a penchant for beating up his many girlfriends. Story 23, I had a few of them. Some of them are really crazy, but one of them seems to have calmed down a bit, and I hope he's doing well in life because he kind of deserves some good luck, Imo. Story 24, one bad boy died of a drug overdose in his 20s, leaving a 4-year-old son behind. Yet another bad boy moved to the USA, raped at least one 14-year-old girl, and has been in prison there for years. One bad boy and one bad girl became pregnant in grade 12 and married the weekend after graduation. They're still together and are fine, upstanding citizens from everything I've heard. Happy ending. Story 25, well, the school is now a nurse in Austin, Texas. She did well for herself. As for the bad boy, he is still in law school at the University of Virginia. I just realized that I'm nowhere near as successful as them, and I feel sad now. Story 26, he got a girlfriend. Girlfriend dumped him because he got into too much trouble, then started a gang that said no to relationships until they get to high school. I think it's hilarious. Story 27, he's a DJ in a nightclub and is a good friend of mine. I used to do his homework and head by me lunch. I managed to get him in my study group. So he didn't bully us, but had spent most off his time drunk or with girls or getting into fights. He's a good friend of mine as well as the other nerds of the group now. We were in a reunion celebrating 10 years of our graduation like 2 years ago, and he invited us to the nightclub where he works, and I hated the music, but everyone seemed to like it. He got divorced last year, though. Not nice, but he's got us together, so we all cheer him up. Story 28, not quite the bad boy. Actually, everyone thought he was goody two-shoes. Turns out he had some of the worst grades in school. was a serial arsonist, and when he was caught attempted suicide. Haven't heard from him since, but he made the news with one of his fires. Story 29, we had a few criminals and heads, and for the most part, they turned out the way you'd imagine. But in terms of bad boys, there was one guy who you could say fit the mold. He never followed the rules, always but heads with authority, smoked weed every morning before school, got a full tattoo sleeve by 16, but for the most part was kind of well-liked by his peers. He ended up dropping out of school, getting kicked out of his parents' house, and selling weed while being homeless. After that, he got heavily involved in a local church and did a complete 180 that shocked everyone. We're talking complete sobriety, mellow attitude, and getting his GED. He continued to be involved in the church. At one point tried going down to Mexico to help build a church for a small village. He ended up starting his own construction company, which ended up going under, and when I last talked to him a few months ago, he told me he was working as a project manager. Story 30, he threatened to bomb the school, then posted multiple videos on YouTube of him beating the family dog, and he kind of disappeared once the police were involved, which was quick. I'm sure he went to a mental wellness facility, and I hope he got better, because earlier that year he tried starting a fire in the school cafeteria. The dude needed a lot of help, but this was about 10 years ago. Story 31, got your seatbelts. Buckle thee up. I couldn't stand her. I don't even care to spare her. Angel. Her name is literally the opposite what she is. I met her when I began middle school, so I believe around 13 years old. She did everything and anything to gain the attention of others, and she did everything she could to rule out anyone that wouldn't give her the time of day or people that she simply didn't like. She constantly did things to make herself seem cool. Once she had a rash that she kept scratching. Sure, scratching your skin isn't noisy at all in a classroom full of talking children, but it was silent, and she literally kept stretching super hard so everyone could hear it, and even cleared her throat a couple of times. Finally, someone asked her what the rash was, and I swear she had literally been waiting for someone to ask. She said, "Oh, that's from my boyfriend's condom," with a grin on her face. "Girl, you were 13. Shut thee up." She had a new boyfriend every month, and would announce it constantly, as if her hopping from boy to boy made her cool. She was one of those people who would start doing things when it became a trend, and when the LGBT movement started, she started to say she was just because it was a trend and would laugh about it, but still stick to stereotypes. She overall tried to act like she was, but nobody trusted her. She was a chronic liar, could never tell the truth. She constantly bragged about how she stole another girl's boyfriend or had with him behind the other girl's back, and so on and so forth. She even bragged about how she stole multiple boyfriends from friends of hers that put their trust in her, which made my blood boil. She was just so awful. She even went out with a boy I had a crush on and acted as though she had no idea I liked him, even if she literally grilled me to tell her who it was. I was one of her targets. I once tried to be her friend, and she kept grilling me about who I liked. So I told her, next thing you know, she's going up to the boy, and he's running for the hills. Everything I told her, she told everyone else, and then would pretend that she had no idea how it got out. I wasn't the only one she did this to. She also spread rumors about me and talked about me behind my back. I soon stopped being her friend after a group of girls tried to jump me in the girls' locker room because she told them that I called their ringleader. I never did. I say tried, because I quickly pulled the girl aside and explained to her the situation. You would expect a hot-looking chick that was the ringleader of a group of violent girls to just swing and not ask questions, but when I finished explaining, she sighed and told me that she was sorry for bothering me. Turns out she had once had a fallout with this ringleader as well, and this wasn't new to the girl, so she believed me. The ringleader and Angel got into a huge fight, and that's where my friendship with her ended. Me and the ringleader actually became friends. The irony. Fast forward to high school. My nephew reached an age where he was curious about the internet, and my sister allowed him an Instagram. I admit I was an overbearing aunt, and I scrolled through his followers. I see that this absolute, which was following my nephew, I wasn't having it. I messaged her, threatening her, and I messaged my sister as well to warn her. I told this, that she was not going to follow my nephew, that I was going to get my nephew to block her, and to never talk to him. I literally knew that she must have been messaging my nephew to tell him things about me or whatever, and I wasn't having it. At the time, my brother went to the same school. Next thing you know, I kid you not, I get a text back from Angel. Only it's not Angel, it's my brother, defending her and telling me to leave her alone, and a bunch of other things. This literally went and told my brother, and played the woe is me card to my older brother, and he didn't believe a word I said when I tried to explain myself. I still can't stand my brother to this day because of this. We got into it, and eventually she literally tried to flirt with my brother, and that's when I blew a gasket and threatened to fight her. She literally had to sleep with everyone, including my brother. Next thing you know, my brother got a different girlfriend, and when this girlfriend informed my brother of the witch that Angel was, he finally believed that Angel was a bad person, which hurt me badly. But whatever now, Angel got her was hooped by someone, got in drugs, and dropped out of school. Glad she's gone. Story 32. We didn't really have that many bad boys, and honestly, they all turn out okay. This one group of girls, though, holy, they all think they're the Kardashians and act like they're famous on Instagram, beautifully documenting their cocaine-induced adventures. The latest thing that's happened with them is the one who I always thought was the most sensible of the group had a baby with some sketchy anti-establishment skater dude. And now, they're all pushing out babies like the human race is going extinct to try and one-up each other. Some of them are on their third or fourth kid. It's like they're having a who can give birth the most times before their legs fall off contest. At least being constantly pregnant has kept them away from the drug for the most part, lol. Story 33 went to private school. So our version of a bad girl was also the class president. But anyhow, on to the story. A few years ago, I received a message from a friend with a newspaper article. This girl got arrested for running an underground ring. She would find and lure in young teenager girls, drug them, and then her and her boyfriend would rape the girls. They held parties where all this went down. Apparently, they were part of a whole group of people. Then the two fled the country after they plead guilty. They were eventually found on a farm where they were working as farmhands. Now I can't find any stories to say what happened, but if I remember correctly, my friend told me she was deported. Story 34. She dropped out of school to travel the world with her suspected pimp. She has since gotten her GED and is now studying business at some university in Las Vegas. Story 35. We had a couple of them where I lived. One found a girlfriend that rescued him from his bad habits. I knew her in passing, and he's really lucky to be dating her. The second dropped out of shitty college, went through rehab, got his life together, and his last I heard, back in school learning. The third was the cliche bad ending. Abandoned the other two, got arrested a couple of times for drugs and petty theft, and I haven't heard of him since. Story 36. So this boy in my class would vape and smoke weed during lunch, and later, I found out from his buddy, he got put on house arrest. Doesn't end there, though. He ran away and came to school. This idiot came to beat up this boy cause he didn't pay for his weed. 5 cops in a different uniform, not SWAT, came and tracked. They had medium guns on them, the boy down. He was found with a small pistol on him. Story 37. There was once this kid in our school who seemed really cool and a real. He was the kid who would smoke a joint during school, and he would carry pocket knives. He was a nice kid. Anyway, he got caught shoplifting birth control pills because he made a chick pregnant. Anyway, fast forward 15 years, he's homeless and a heroin addict. I only know because I saw him outside of Starbucks about a week ago. Story 38. I used to be best friends with the bad boys in grade school. Then we entered high school. We started drifting apart after being placed in different sections, but all in the same grade. One is a registered nurse with a family of his own now. Married a doctor, and they just had a baby. He's a frontliner for a city's regional hospital that catered to COVID-19 patients. Bless him. One became a dad too early, got fat, took his sweet time to graduate from college, and he barely did graduate. But he's wiser now, and we're happy he's on the right track. The other one was a drug addict when we entered college, and last I heard, he's still one. No one's seen him since 2016. I'm hoping he's okay. Story 39, our local bad girl, is actually my neighbor. During her last 2 years of high school, both her parents passed away from vastly different illnesses. She shut herself away for a while after. Now, she can't keep a job to support herself because she's still permanently trapped in that bad girl attitude from how much they spoiled her that she has to rely on her brother 2 states over to pay for her food and apartment. Story 40, my best friend was the school bad girl. Dated guys in their 20s when she was in high school, did drugs, did not deal well with authority, etc. She's had her ups and downs, like getting arrested during her 3rd wedding. But now she's in law school in Hawaii. Story 41, my guess, is he managed to scrape a life together and finally get that Ford F-150 with a gun rack and make just enough money to be hyper-conservative and vote against any system that would actually be able to help him out of crushing debt and wage slave poverty. Story 42, the group he was in got into a car crash, killing one of them. He was the one driving, but the oldest one took the blame. The poor girl almost was paralyzed to the waist down and still took the blame for him because he just got his license. They all have almost fully healed since then. It's been a year or so. Story 43, he is still trying to live as a musician, but in reality being sustained by his father, mother, and living with them. She got pregnant with 17, did not finish school, had the baby, went back to school, and finished it. Her family sustains her and the baby since the father disappeared. She struggles with raising the kid, trying to go to parties, and work earning less than the cost for education food for the kid alone. They're both over 30 now. All this from social media. Story 44, I didn't find out until well into high school it was me. I started going to private school freshman year and got ghosted by my friends. Had no idea why. But at a party in our town, I rarely went to parties. I saw one and asked what the deal was. Apparently, his mom called all of our friends' moms and told them I was a bad influence and I needed to be excluded from hanging out with them. So one mom cost me 95 of my childhood friends. So I'm well married, no kids, no plan on having kids, own a home, work in advertising, didn't finish college, but didn't need to stay fit. My wife is beautiful. We're healthy and happy. As for the friends, 2 dead from ODs, 1 cashier at a liquor store who lives with his parents, 1 moved to Germany to be a European homeless person, 1 convicted of assault, 1 pizza delivery driver addict, 1 just disappeared at around 17. I guess his father worked in the state government, and when he was busted with drugs, they just sent him away. No social media or contact with anyone. At one point, I asked his sister, and she just said she didn't want to talk about it. He could literally be dead and would never know. 1 was an internet pioneer in that before he was 20, he was facing federal trafficking charges for selling drugs online, and that about covers it. So it's clear to everyone I was the problem. Story 45, there were 2 of them. They were both girls. They were the cool stoners, vaped and drank a lot. Anyways, they hung out a lot, and one day they got into a nasty fight, and 1 got punched in the face and got her glasses broken, and the other one was thrown up against the locker and couldn't walk for a week in the end. One of them got expelled, Glasses Girl BC. She started the fight, and the other one got to stay. I now go to the same school as Glasses Girl, and she started being nicer to everyone, and now we're chill. Story 46, I would not consider myself a bad boy myself, but I was hanging around with that group of friends anyway. One of them is once again sent into a rehab home due to drug addiction for like the 5th time. Another working his off on the weeks, partying and doing coke on the weekends. Last time I spoke with one of the girls, seems like she pretty much just isolated herself at home with the rent paid by her mom. Everyone else that was a part of this group has moved away from here, and I have no idea how they're doing nowadays, but I hope and I guess they're doing fine, as they've apparently felt done here. I do know one of them has a child. Story 47, I've been in a relationship with a bad boy for 7 years now and can wholeheartedly say he is not a bad boy behind closed doors. He is a sweet gentleman. Story 48, I was one of those cool guys thanks to my older drug dealing boss older brother. So when I got to high school, they welcomed me with open arms. I basically had 0 enemies and was on a pedestal. But right after graduation, I joined the Navy literally a month after 2001 to get the away from it, because I sensed my day of reckoning was coming. But while in boot camp that summer, I got a letter from my baby sis saying 4 of my boys were arrested and charged with murder. The same boys I hung with on weekends at the mall. To this day, 3 of the 4 are still incarcerated and married with 3 amazing kids, have my own business and men are young kids. When I talk sometimes about things back in high school, these kids never believe me because I wear shirt and tie nearly every day and carry myself differently, but I can relate to them well. Crazy how one decision to leave changed my path. Story 49, I married him. Turns out he's on the autism spectrum, but it was too mild for people to recognize when we were kids. A lot of his rebellious behavior was him not understanding unwritten social rules and just being like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, I'm not going to do that. That are sensory meltdowns. The reason he was always staring people down was that he didn't get how much eye contact to give, and he didn't blink as much as neurotypical people do. He has since gotten much better at eye contact and blink rates. So keeping jobs is still tricky because he's decent at masking, but still has trouble with following those unwritten social rules that don't make sense to him. But he's a loving husband and father. Story 50, all my friends got expelled for kicking people's asses or selling drugs. They couldn't pin anything on me, but I was guilty by association, so they booted me too. I graduated through an spin and study program. When I turned 18, I got my MMJ card and started a very successful business with a couple buddies. I made way too much money too young. My business buddies got greedy. One of my GF, I did too much coke and was constantly pickled, yada yada yada. Moral of the story, I got screwed by the other people I was in business with. I lost all my money I had invested in the business. I got left literally high and dry and had to basically start my life over. Those still owe me close to 100K though. Oh. Story 51, pretty sure he's in jail now. When I was 20, I went out one night with friends whom I hadn't seen in ages, and one girl, the well-connected kind, told me he had been arrested for armed robbery. Interesting thing is, this guy was a menace, rude and arrogant, extremely mean to teachers and some kids, but he never bullied me, even though many other kids did, because I was the ugly girl in class. He was never mean to me in particular. It's so strange. Story 52, after high school, he got a girl pregnant, married her, and has settled down. No longer posts pictures of himself doing drugs on FB. It's been replaced by pictures of his wife and little girl. Proud of him. Story 53, that ended up going to pound me in the prison in his senior year. As a repeat offender, his GPA was the lowest in our class, and sadly mine was right above his. He's still in prison, and that was 30 years ago. That is my brother. Story 54 got preggo as a teenager. She's still pretty, and her baby is cute too, but Ahe signed up for a very hard life for the next years, living with a baby in a starving country where malnutrition, violence, and lack of medicines are everyday problems. I'm sorry for her baby. He was born in Venezuela. Story 55 bad boy went off to university, found out he wasn't the coolest guy around anymore, had a breakdown, and moved home to work at his dad's company, which recently went under due to embezzlement from what I've heard. Bad girl got knocked up, found that white person, kind of hippie fake Buddhism, and posts constantly about how nothing natural in this world can ever harm you at all. Story 56. So let me preface this with we were friends in high school, and then ran into each other right before the quarantine. About 1 year later, her hey, come visit me at work sometime hands me an address on a slip of paper. A couple days later, I text her to see if she's at work. She responds fairly immediately and says yes. I show up to a warehouse, and a bouncer is standing out front, nothing too out of the ordinary. He clears me, and I head inside, and instantly Pornhub intro plays. Story 57. There were probably a few of those at our school because of the location, but there was only one kid that we were all cautious around. She would carve boys' names into her arms in class, access kitty from the school computers, stab people with pointy objects, flick her blood on others. She was absolutely covered in scars. Looking back, she had obviously come from some kind of broken home. My mom pushed me to befriend her, and I did. She would come around and draw on her walls, say weird, pick me up and shake me, demand money from me in the middle of the night. I was so afraid of her that I just let it all happen. She hit me one day when we were talking, and I snapped. Screamed at her and told her to get her together. Told her she needed to be a normal person. I was really rude, and I regret the way I lashed out. We never spoke again. She died from a heroin overdose a few years after that. Story 58. I kicked him in the shin, and he lost his entire tough guy bad boy act in front of my entire grade during lunch and cried. Although it did make me a little guilty, afterwards he became an overachieving student. I proceeded to repeat this on every bad boy bad girl in my grade, and I would like to think it turned their life around. They all became genuinely nice people after the whole act crumbled. Story 59. The baby she had at 15 is doing well and is learning to be a plumber. She is currently working in a care home, getting her NVQs after not finishing high school. Story 60. Masturbated and acted like a gorilla outside a pay loan. Dude's mom tried to call me online for being in the Nutcracker tights. I didn't know, and my mom came in hot with a news report of her son's primate performance. Story 61. He had a rich dad, used all the money on weed and on microtransactions and games up to $3,000 just in one game. He boasted about being more mature than any of us because he had lost virginity early and didn't believe in God, never paid attention in class. Used to bring weed alcohol to school as well as to have with girls in the bathroom. Prologue. We finished school. Some of us got in college, and some of us opened business. I became an atheist. My decision was influenced by science instead of some edgy BS. Still respect the Christian community a lot, though. He didn't finish high school. His father putted him in a boarding school, and to top it off, he got a Christian girlfriend and suddenly started to believe in God. Nothing against that. I just find it ironic. Story 62. She joined an MLM selling mud as a snake oil for 80,000 in Oz and calls people libtards on the book, claiming to be conservative women of America. I've known the woman since 1896. Didn't know she had it in her. Story 63. We graduated. A few weeks later, they beat a kid to death with a baseball bat because he ripped them off on $20 worth of weed. Needless to say, no one was really that shocked. Story 64. The bad boy was my friend and settled down with my crush of 5 years. Pissed me off a lot. They're still together, and as much as she's changed him to make him a better person, he changed her too in a way that started some bad habits, driving him everywhere, cause he has no license, having sleepovers way too early, many bad financial decisions. They're happy, but looks like a time bomb to me. Story 65. He was an actor, aka was a kid in the background of 2 whole commercials. He never shut up about how he was famous and such a great actor. Near the end of 8th grade, he broke his leg while sparring in a commercial for his dojo. He competed in martial arts competitions. Not sure what kind though, ever since he's broken his leg once a year or so. We're in 11th grade now, and he dropped out of school a few months ago. Not sure why, too many rumors. Story 66. Bad girl. She was pretty chill with me. Taught me some stuff about dudes on my bus because she got her parking space taken from her at school. Anyhow, my town had a teacher parade for elementary schoolers where teachers made a parade and drove around town. So she decided it would be a great idea to get her to drive her around right behind the teachers so she could flip off 4K 3RD graders. Got posted on the city Facebook page, and her sister saw it and blew up on her in the group, tagged the mom. Everything, pretty sure she got her comeuppance. She was supposed to graduate this year, but she dropped out, so